We don't always know it, though. We don't always accept it and realize it. And then, and as Campbell talks, he talks about the threshold, that point beyond which we cannot really return to who and what we were before. Think about that for a moment in your own lives, in your own careers. What was the point where you knew, without a doubt, especially in hospice work, when you knew you had to stay with us? In spite of all the stuff that was hard to do and all the things that you needed to learn, all the challenges that you thought were ahead of you, you said, I have to do this. I can't go back. You know, once you set your foot to that yellow brick road, it's hard to go back. It's hard to go back. What was that moment for you? Think about that for a moment. It could be the illness of a patient, the illness of a family member or a friend. It could have been how you witnessed care being delivered to someone in your life. I talked about that this morning in my workshop, where I saw how my dad was cared for before he died by a wide array of nurses and other professionals that really gave me the commitment to stay where I am, because I said we need a lot of work. People need a lot of work in healthcare. They need to be taught and reminded of why they got into this work in the first place. So there are these constant reminders that keep our foot to the path. For Dorothy, it was the yellow brick road, and for Luke, there's a bunch of experiences that happen in those movies. You know, the scene when he's trapped in the garbage compactor and things begin to close up on him, and he always finds a way out. And these are themes that happen with the hero all the time. Obstacles are thrown in our way, in their way, and somehow through the intervention of a mentor or the person's own ingenuity, we somehow get out of it. And again, those experiences have happened to us as well, and that's why we're still here today. The barriers, there's a lot of barriers to staying on the path. I know when I've been I don't do a whole lot of patient work anymore. They kind of bump me into an office. That's kind of where I stay most of the time, unfortunately. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But when I was at the bedside, I remember sitting with patients, and I couldn't help but think, what was it going to be like for me when I'm there in that place? And what would that do? That would generate a lot of anxiety in me, in myself, and thinking about what kind of death would I have? How would I be sick? Would it be quick? Would it be, you know, the death everybody wants and just kind of die quietly in your sleep? That would be great. That doesn't always happen that way. The standing with the patient, and so many of them have said this to me in different ways. I've never died before. I don't know what this is going to be like. It's really the ultimate step into the ultimate unknown. So all these barriers that come up in our lives, the anxiety, the questioning, you know, why am I doing this? Why am I sitting at this bedside day after day after day with these people who are going to die? What, am I out of my mind? This is crazy. And people look at us as being pretty crazy, right? You know, tell people what you do for a living, you'll clear a cocktail party in no time. I remember years ago, I live in North Jersey, and I take New Jersey Transit or sometimes the PATH train into the city, to Manhattan. And it was a hot summer day, kind of like the last 4 days here. We only have like 3 of those in New Jersey a year. So I'm on the PATH train, and there's usually 2 lines that run from Manhattan to Hoboken. And that day there's only one, and it was packed. I had short sleeve shirt on. There was a convention in town, so there were a lot of guys with, you know, polo shirts with emblems on it and name tags like, "Hi, my name is Bob." And I got stuck next to Bob on the train. I'm holding it, you know, it was packed, so I'm holding on as best I can to the, you know, to the pole above me. And he turns to me, and I have my VNS Inwine lanyard on. You know, he says, "Oh." So you know, he really physically makes an effort to turn around to talk to me. He said, "No, I'm talking to you." So, what do you do? And I said, "Who do you work for?" I said, "I work for the Visiting Nurse Service." "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a social worker." "What kind of social work?" I wasn't going to let go. And I don't want to talk to you, buddy. It was the longest Friday afternoon, too, by the way. At 4:30. I want to just get the hell home and have a beer. And this guy keeps yammering on and on and on. What kind of social work? I said, well, I work in hospice. I work with people at end of life. And I swear to God, he goes, oh, somebody has to do it. And he physically turns around and I said, well, I hope you get hit by a train. No, I didn't say that. On the inside, I said that. So, you know, I think about it, and you know, it makes me think, okay, is this guy right? Am I really crazy? You know, doing this work every day and putting up with all the nonsense and people, the crazy families and the crazy colleagues, but wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't have it any other way. What are we doing on time here? Okay. Now, any comments so far? I mean, I keep yammering and yammering. Makes sense? Is it, you know, clicking a little bit? Hopefully it will be. Hopefully you won't be too unkind to me. Somewhere along the line, hopefully we're gonna, when we get to a point where things get tough, we're gonna meet somebody that's gonna kick us in the behind and remind us how we got here. Who was that person for you in your hospice careers? Maybe there's been more than one. Maybe there's been more than one. I have a new one now. I've had multiple supervisors over the last 16 years, and for the first time in my career, it's actually been a social worker that's supervising me, which is kind of cool for the first time. She's been very encouraging, and she has a very big foot, and it hurts a lot, but it works pretty well for me. But I remember back, and this is while I was still a priest actually when I was leaving the priesthood, I had a friend of mine who was the pastor of the parish where I was ordained into to work in upstate New York. And he himself had been a missionary in Latin America. And, you know, that part of my life, you know, before I met Christine and got married, was pretty hard stuff. You know, you expect you're going to be there for the rest of your life, and then stuff happens and say, maybe not. Maybe this is going to be the way it's going to be. So I'm sitting with this gentleman. His name is Connell McHugh. He's in his late 80s now. He lives down in Seaside Park, New Jersey. Haven't seen him for a long time. But he was really a tremendous guide to me, not only as the pastor of the parish where I worked, but as a friend and colleague, and then the person who was going to be in charge of our region when I decided to make the transition out of the priesthood. And he said to me, you know, when I went to him, and this is over a long period of time, talking to him about I wanted to make the decision to leave and possibly get married. And he said, I didn't expect what he would say to me. He said, when you look in the mirror in the morning, you have to be comfortable and at peace with the person you see there. Right? You can't be what other people think you should be or what other people expect you to be. It's between, that's the connection that you have, you know, in those days, in my case, between you and your God. You have to be you have to be your truest self. Now, I didn't know what he was going to say to me, but that statement gave me the courage to actually, in fact, make that transition out of celibate life into a different kind of life in ministry and ultimately into social work. That's when I went to Syracuse. I have another Syracuse alumni. Yay, Susan. Went to Syracuse and I decided to go for the big bucks and go into social work. So I'm talking about, I want you to identify who were those people, who were those mentors to you. And if you're faltering right now or having second thoughts about your career and what you're doing in healthcare and hospice in 2014, go back to those people for a moment. Maybe they're still around in your life. Or go back to what they said to you and kept you on the path. Now, I found out later when I was talking to Connell, the priest who gave me those words of encouragement, he had been in a similar experience where he had fallen in love with somebody when he was a priest, and he made a choice to stay. And that choice for me, his choice to stay in the priesthood, for me, was a gift, because he wouldn't have been there that day to give me the encouragement that I needed to make that transition out. He had been through the same experience as I had been, and I was in at the time. tremendous, tremendous. So, you know, those people who come into our lives unexpectedly are there for a reason. And I don't mean to say that in any kind of trite or hallmarky kind of way. I think it's really part of what our journey is supposed to be. You know, we don't have, Camel writes, we don't have, for we, can't really see what's down here, I keep forgetting it's here, for we have not to risk the adventure alone. The heroes and heroines of all time have gone before us. And again, I'm going to reference back on May 10th, 1980, I was ordained to the priesthood in Albany, New York, a big cathedral, and it was a long aisle. You know, for those of you who have been married, know how long that aisle is. You know, it was half a mile up that way. But as I was walking down that aisle, you know, I was the last guy, I was the shortest guy in the class, I was the last, and, you know, walking up the aisle, there was 10 or 12 of us that day. What did I think about? I thought about all those people who had been down that aisle before me. All those men who were going to be ordained and who were priests already. I was part of that. Wow, it was pretty cool. You know, hundreds and thousands of people who've been down that, you know, maybe not there physically in Albany, and around the years, all those that had been down there. So I felt I was not alone. And you know what? I felt the same thing the day that I married Christine. It was a shorter aisle, thank God. But I thought about all those people who had walked down that path in that church to be with the person that they love the most. And when you sit at your IDT tables, think about all the people who have been in that room for you. The people who had inspired you and encouraged you and have done the same work that you have done and that are doing now along the way. We're not alone in this. We have tremendous depth. We have a great bench to draw on. People have gone before us. We don't have to think that we're alone in this. And I worry very much in my own life and in the way that the industry is going today, that awareness of connectedness at the table, at the IDT table, is being taken away from us. Don't let it. Who was it saying? You know, be the change. Yesterday, the keynote speaker, you know, be the change you want to be. It's not going to happen unless we do it. It's not going to happen unless we challenge what's coming out of Washington, out of CMS, to say, no, this isn't the way it should be done. I went to Gary and Susan's workshop yesterday. Just because something's coming out of CMS doesn't make it right. Follow your instincts. Well, you can applaud. Applause is good. You can applaud.